Hello, everyone. So today I want to talk about when video game consoles are considered retro, and I want to give you all a hint. It's not the age of the console, because many consoles have different lifespans, and it's very awkward, in my opinion, to call a console that still has games being made for it by first parties retro. So, in my eyes, I think when a game console or handheld stops being retro is when the first party stop developing for the system. Like, for example, the Game Boy. Like, people are still playing Game Boys in 2000, and Nintendo's still, making games for the console back in 1999 with Pokemon. But but in 2000, I don't know if I could really count it as Game Boy games because Pokemon Gold and Silver came out and you could play games on Game Boy, but um basically it would be better to play on the Game Boy Color. And it's mainly a Game Boy Color game. So anyways, that's what I'd say about that. And another reason why I come up with this idea that game consoles stop being modern when first parties stop making games for it is because it's because when because sometimes there'll be times where like third party companies still make games for certain consoles after a while, like for example the Wii with Ubisoft and Just Dance. So I'm thinking the Wii was considered retro like in 2013 in my eyes. And another reason I have to say for why consoles stop becoming modern when first party developers stop is because like if we look at the Sega Saturn um in 2003 the Sega Saturn would be considered retro, right? Like no one's really playing it. Um and also Sega's not developing games for it, right? So people are much more quickly to call it retro if it has to do with age, right? But if we do that, then what about with the PlayStation 4 today? Like the PlayStation 4, there's still being games made for it by first party developers. Um but anyways, that's what I have to say. So like, you know, so that's why I think instead of making it about age, like it has to be 20 or 15 years old, like forget that. Let's just talk about when the first party developers are not making games for it anymore. Like for example, there's also the Sega Master System, which is still being sold in Brazil, and I'm not sure if first party or third party games are still being made for it, but if first party games are still being made for it, then I could say it's still modern. But I think what's going on is mostly homebrew stuff, and there's also been times where third parties have made stuff for a long time after first party stopped. Like for example, Game Boy Advance. Nintendo made their last Game Boy Advance game in 2006, but the third parties developed games between 2007 and 2008. So that's why I think whenever the first parties stop developing, that's when the system's retro because the point of it is the system's made by a first party, and if they aren't making games for it, then like it kind of stops being the point of it has a point where it stops being sold because of first-party games. So anyways, that's all I have to say. Hopefully my answer didn't surprise you all too much.